At 85, John Cleese, iconic comedian and one of the Monty Python legends, has dropped a revelation so shocking it's reverberating across Hollywood. In his new memoir, he didn't just call someone difficult or stringent, he went much further. She was truly evil. Who did John Cleese accuse and why did he wait decades to say it? Comment 1 if you love Cleese's comedy, or 0 if you suspect there's more to this story than meets the eye. In today's video, we'll delve into the depths of his explosive admission and uncover the truth behind the claim. John Cleese reveals shocking truth in Memoir. The celebrated Monty Python star has opened up about deeply personal aspects of his life in his candid memoir at age 85. He made these revelations while facing his own mortality and working out of financial necessity. His description of someone as truly evil marks a stark contrast to the witty, somewhat detached persona his fans know him for. The comedy legend chose to share these personal truths during an unexpected phase of his life. I ought to warn your readers that when you get to your 80s, you're not prepared. I think Philip Roth once finished one novel about old age by saying it's a massacre, he told The Times. Financial pressures from multiple divorces have forced him to keep working instead of enjoying retirement. If you lose your nest egg at 70, then there's not much alternative to constantly working, he said openly. This chapter of Cleese's life involves deep personal reflection and therapy. He's been to therapy on and off and might seek additional help specific to this life stage. I think I'm going to find a Jungian because Jung was very, very good in the second half of life, and I think as you approach death, there's more of an awareness of it, Cleese explained. These revelations paint a picture of a man coming to terms with his past while facing life's final chapter. Despite his age, Cleese stays remarkably active on social media with 5.7 million Twitter followers. He shares his views on political correctness, climate change deniers, and what he sees as stupidity and nonsense regularly. This harsh declaration about someone being truly evil surprises many who assumed Cleese came from aristocratic roots given his educated manner and precise diction. His memoir reveals a different story. He was the only child of a rather ordinary and loving lower-middle-class insurance salesman and his fearful wife with whom young John had a difficult relationship. The target of Cleese's severe characterization appears to be his mother. He does not pull punches about their relationship. After hearing about a wounded World War I soldier calling out for his mother young, John thought to himself, why on earth would he cry for her? This single story reveals volumes about their troubled bond. His book, So Anyway, puts these personal revelations into context and helps readers understand his approach to comedy and his view of life. Critics describe the memoir as so funny that you may find yourself engaged in that sort of shoulder-shaking, life-threatening laughter, while being self-deprecating with very dark humor. These shocking confessions give fans a new perspective on the man behind countless classic Monty Python quotes and sketches. Many now wonder if his famous memory sketch and other comedic work served as ways to process deep emotional scars through humor, something he seems ready to acknowledge as he nears life's end. Who was the woman Cleese called truly evil? John Cleese's memoir contains a shocking revelation about his mother, Muriel Cleese. He describes her as truly evil. This unexpected characterization from the comedy legend helps us understand his artistic path and personal challenges. His honest reflections show how this complicated relationship with his mother shaped his view of the world and his unique style of comedy. Young John's life was dominated by Muriel Cleese's controlling nature. As an only child, he found himself in what he describes as an oppressive household ruled by his mother's unpredictable moods and constant worries. Their relationship lacked emotional warmth, quite different from what most would expect between mother and son. His memoir shares a telling story where he couldn't understand why a wounded soldier called out for his mother during wartime. Why on earth would he cry for her? Young, John wondered which shows how disconnected he felt from the woman who raised him. His childhood was marked by his mother's overwhelming anxieties that suffocated rather than protected him. She showed what psychologists might call narcissistic traits. She always put her needs first and ignored her son's emotional needs. Her unpredictable temper meant young John had to be careful as he never knew what might set off her next emotional outburst. This relationship left clear marks on Cleese's adult life. His relationships, especially with women, mirrored the complex patterns from his early years. These early experiences likely led to his multiple marriages and divorces, situations that forced him to keep working into his 80s because of money problems. Muriel Cleese showed a completely different face to the outside world. Their neighbors in Weston-super-Mare saw her as a proper, somewhat anxious, middle-class English housewife. This careful public image hid the emotional storms that raged behind closed doors. The gap between public image and private reality created what Cleese calls an emotional double bind that changed how he understood people. This split between appearance and truth later showed up in his work on the John Cleese Meaning of Life and other comedy pieces that explored deeper ideas. His famous John Cleese Monty Python quotes often reflect this childhood experience where what people showed outside was very different from the truth. Cleese's revelations give new meaning to his comedy. His characters often struggle with suppressed emotions or sudden outbursts, possibly reflecting his childhood experience of dealing with his mother's mood swings. The John Cleese memory sketch takes on new meaning when you think about someone who had to become extremely good at reading emotions just to survive at home. His trademark style, the stiff posture and controlled movements that burst into moments of wild energy, might come from growing up with a mother whose love depended on his behavior. His comedy often deals with themes of holding back and letting go, feelings familiar to children of emotionally unstable parents. Now, in his later years, Cleese seems ready to tell the truth about his mother rather than protect her public image. Yet, the complexity of their relationship still shows up in his work, suggesting that his best comedy came from his deepest hurt. How Cleese's early life shaped his relationships. Growing up in Weston-super-Mare left an indelible mark on John Cleese that would echo through his personal relationships for decades. The John Cleese memoir gives us a rare glimpse into how his early years created patterns that defined his adult connections, career choices, and creative expression. Cleese grew up with an insurance salesman father and an anxious, controlling mother. His childhood home valued keeping up appearances more than emotional honesty. His father, Rage Cleese, was a modest insurance salesman, quite different from the aristocratic background many fans assumed based on Cleese's educated manner and precise way of speaking. Young John's childhood was marked by emotional and social isolation. He had no siblings to help buffer his mother's demanding nature. This solitude ended up encouraging both independence and emotional detachment that would show up in many of his adult relationships. Life in Britain's lower middle class after the war brought its own tensions. Looking respectable mattered more than being honest about feelings. Of course, this early lesson, that appearances trump authentic feelings, became the foundation of Cleese's later issues with intimacy and vulnerability. These relationship patterns followed Cleese into adulthood. They shaped his choices in romantic partners and played a role in his multiple marriages and divorces. The blueprints from childhood were sort of hard to get one's arms around even when he recognized them. The John Cleese book goes beyond his famous description of his mother as truly evil. It shows how her anxieties and behaviors shaped his basic understanding of the world and relationships. Her constant worry and need for control taught young John that the world wasn't safe, a view that later inspired his comedic take on chaos versus order. Young Cleese watched his mother try to control everything and everyone around her. This experience gave him a deep skepticism about authority figures. His famous John Cleese Monty Python quotes and sketches that mock institutions and power structures reflect this early influence. Her unpredictable moods forced Cleese to become extremely aware of emotional undertones. He developed an almost supernatural knowledge of how to read subtle social cues. This sensitivity started as a survival tool but became a comedic superpower. It let him spot and highlight human behavior's absurdities with precise timing. The John Cleese meaning of life work often comes back to themes directly tied to his relationship with his mother. Rules that make no sense, comedy in suppressed emotions, public faces versus private truths, humor in controlling personalities. His famous John Cleese memory sketch takes on new meaning through this lens. It might reflect his childhood need to carefully track his mother's moods and reactions. His silly walks and physical comedy often showed tightly controlled movements that burst into sudden energy, much like the emotional atmosphere of his youth. His mother's influence taught Cleese to use humor as both protection and weapon. Comedy became his main tool to keep emotional distance when intimacy felt overwhelming. At the same time, it gave him a way to connect when normal emotional expression seemed too risky. What the memoir says about Cleese's emotional scars, the John Cleese memoir lays bare deep emotional wounds with raw honesty. Readers get a rare glimpse into the psychological roots that shaped his comedic brilliance. This famously private comedian strips away his carefully built public image to show how early trauma molded both his life and work. His autobiographical work contains passages that light up the deep effects of his troubled relationship with his mother. A particularly striking moment comes when Cleese remembers his childhood reaction to hearing about an injured soldier calling for his mother during war. Why on earth would he cry for her? This short question reveals the emotional gap in his maternal relationship. Cleese paints a picture of his stifling childhood home where his mother's anxieties created constant tension. "I lived in constant fear of her next emotional outburst," he shares. This unpredictability made him develop a sharp awareness of emotional undertones, a talent that helped his career but made personal relationships complex. The John Cleese book reveals much about his emotional survival tactics. Comedy became my armor. He shares in a touching section a way to transform pain into something valuable. This insight connects his personal struggles with his professional success, giving readers fresh perspective on his artistic choices. Cleese also talks about how therapy helped him see patterns from his childhood. "Only in my 70s did I fully comprehend how those early years programmed my responses to intimacy," he reflects. These words show how childhood wounds left their mark even after decades. His therapeutic journey tackles the John Cleese meaning of life questions that both troubled and motivated him. This memoir shows time and again how Cleese turned personal pain into comedic gold. Famous John Cleese Monty Python quotes often hint at his personal struggles. His focus on rules and proper behavior in sketches like Ministry of Silly Walks gains new meaning when seen through the lens of his mother's random standards. The John Cleese memory sketch shows his heightened alertness, a trait common in children with unpredictable parents. His comedy often features characters trying to stay composed amid chaos, much like his childhood experience with his mother's mood swings. The memoir presents trauma and humor as deeply connected forces in Cleese's life. "My deepest wounds became my greatest gifts." He reflects, noting the strange link between emotional scars and creative success. This connection explains why his comedy touches so many people. It comes from real human struggle, not just clever wordplay. By sharing these emotional scars, Cleese gives us more than just his life story. His honesty about personal trauma helps fans see the deep psychological layers beneath his seemingly light comedy. How Monty Python reflected Cleese's inner world. Monty Python became a creative outlet where John Cleese expressed his deep psychological state. Most viewers never realized they watched his personal story unfold beneath the comedy. The John Cleese memoir shows how his seemingly random sketches actually revealed glimpses of his emotional struggles. The Python sketches show Cleese's attraction to characters stuck in systems full of meaningless rules and weird authority figures. This artistic choice links directly to his childhood experiences. His portrayal of uptight, emotionally restricted characters shows his own difficulty with expressing real feelings after years of his mother's influence. The Ministry of Silly Walks sketch means much more when you look at his personal story. His character tries so hard to stay dignified while doing ridiculous walks. This mirrors how Cleese had to act normal as a child despite his mother's unexpected emotional outbursts. The sketches he wrote and performed often featured stuck-up authority figures who lose power when questioned, showing how he saw his mother's control. Characters who explode with emotion after staying rigid and controlled, just like his own bottled-up feelings. Stories where proper behavior fights with basic instincts, like his family's focus on looking good rather than being real. His physical comedy style, a proper Englishman suddenly bursting with crazy energy, shows what it felt like growing up with an unpredictable mother. The John Cleese book reveals comedy helped him deal with emotional trauma. Satire let him turn painful memories into something he could handle and even enjoy. This creative process gave him power over experiences that once left him helpless. Python's ruthless mockery of institutions and authority figures became Cleese's way to fight back against his controlling mother. Making fun of authority on screen helped him break free from her psychological hold. His work in The John Cleese Meaning of Life digs deepest into his psychological state. The film's focus on rules, proper behavior, and silly social restrictions connects straight to his childhood under his mother's strict rules. His comedy often puts characters in situations where they must stay calm while everything goes crazy around them, exactly what he dealt with throughout his childhood. Many famous John Cleese Monty Python quotes show surprising links to his personal struggles when you read his memoir. This is an ex-parrot. The dead parrot sketch shows his frustration with emotional manipulation, like when people told him his feelings weren't real, just as the shopkeeper denies the obvious dead parrot. "I'd like to have an argument, please." From the Argument Clinic sketch reveals his desire for real emotional connection after growing up where genuine feelings got pushed aside. His catchphrase, "And now for something completely different," takes on new meaning. It shows his lifelong effort to break free from childhood emotional patterns through creative new directions. The John Cleese memory sketch about the Ministry of Information with its crazy bureaucracy and random rules shows how his comedy turned personal pain into art, creating something meaningful from his suffering. Personal life. Now, if you've laughed at Monty Python or chuckled through Fawlty Towers, then you already know a bit about John Cleese, the tall, brainy Brit with a talent for making the absurd seem perfectly logical. But behind all the laughter, Cleese has lived a personal life that's seen its fair share of drama, love, and change. In fact, you might say he's had as many plot twists at home as he has on screen. John has been married 4 times. Yes, 4. And each marriage tells a different story of creativity, ambition, distance, and hope. His first wife was Connie Booth. If that name sounds familiar, it's because she co-wrote Fawlty Towers with John and played the ever-patient Polly on the show. They met in the late 1960s, and theirs was a classic tale of 2 minds meeting equal parts romance and writing partnership. Together, they created one of the most beloved sitcoms in British television. But while their work sparkled, their marriage eventually fizzled out. Even so, they remained close enough to raise their daughter Cynthia, often called Camilla, and to finish Fawlty Towers as true collaborators. After Connie, John found love again, this time across the Atlantic. He married Barbara Trentham, an American model and actress. Their union brought John deeper into American life, and they had a daughter, Camilla. For a while, they lived what looked like a picture-perfect life, balancing careers, parenting, and travel. But again, the pressures of fame and differing paths led to divorce. Still, their shared role as parents kept them connected, and Barbara always remained an important chapter in John's life. Next came Alice Faye Eichelberger, a warm and accomplished American psychotherapist. Unlike his earlier relationships, Alice wasn't part of show business, and perhaps that offered John a new kind of support. Quiet, thoughtful, grounded. They married in 1992, and for a while it seemed like he'd found steady ground. But even that marriage came to an end. The details stayed mostly private, but the split was reportedly expensive and emotionally exhausting. And then came Jennifer Wade. In 2012, John took another leap of faith and married this vibrant, much younger entrepreneur. She brought with her a fresh energy, a sharp wit, and by all accounts a calming presence. Jennifer has been more than just a spouse. She's been a steady partner through John's later years, through his tours, writing projects, and public speaking engagements. Their marriage seems to have brought him something he'd long been chasing: peace. John has 2 children from his earlier marriages, a daughter from his time with Barbara and a daughter from his first marriage with Connie. He's always said that fatherhood has been one of the most meaningful parts of his life, and even through the ups and downs, he's made it a point to be present. So, yes, the man who made millions laugh with dead parrots and silly walks has weathered his share of heartbreak and hope. And at the end of this day, he's still out there laughing, writing, performing, proving that it's never too late for a new beginning or a new punchline. Why Cleese waited until 85 to share this. The renowned comedian's decision to reveal such deeply personal truths at age 85 comes from a mix of cultural upbringing, generational values, and personal development. The John Cleese memoir goes beyond a career retrospective. It stands as a deep examination of emotional realities that shaped his life. Cleese has seen both sides of public opinion throughout his career. His outspoken nature often put him in controversial spots, especially about sensitive social issues. He faced heavy criticism over the last several years for his comments about transgender issues and his support for J.K. Rowling. Many called him transphobic. These circumstances made sharing deeply personal family trauma a risky move that could bring even more scrutiny. His delay in sharing these revelations likely ties to his run-ins with British tabloid media, which he openly criticized. He took issue with the aggressive tabloid culture that targeted celebrities and royals. This environment made keeping painful personal truths private both a shield and a career strategy. His reluctance also came from his generation's values about showing emotions. Speaking about his father's view on emotions, Cleese explained, "It was considered bad manners, bad form to tell other people about your problems because you shouldn't burden them. You handle your problems yourself, and then you're cheerful and friendly." This mindset guided how Cleese approached public disclosure most of his life. The comedian has criticized what he sees as too much emotional sharing in today's culture, stating, "You see now, all these Americans suddenly are on the internet because they're talking about the way they've been badly treated. You want to say, and it's, look what a wonderful person I am talking about my problems." Oh, this point of view shows why sharing intimate details about his mother might have felt wrong to him for so many years. Cleese's view on emotional honesty has changed by a lot as he nears life's final chapter. He recently expressed interest in trying therapy again, specifically with a Jungian therapist, because Jung was very, very good in the second half of life, and I think as you approach death, there's more of an awareness of it. This shows how thoughts of mortality changed his focus toward psychological healing. The John Cleese book marks the peak of a therapeutic experience that started decades ago. He tried therapy on and off, and co-wrote Families and How to Survive Them in 1983 with psychiatrist Robin Skinner. All the same, this latest memoir takes his honesty to new heights. Death's reality has changed Cleese's readiness to face painful truths. He speaks openly about losing colleagues and friends. He admits feeling depressed about these losses and warns, "I ought to warn your readers that when you get to your 80s, you're not prepared." This growing awareness of life's limits explains his new openness. Practical reasons might have played a role in his timing. After finishing his memoir, Cleese mentioned he had been working on the book for 2 years and wanted to get away from it for a bit. This hints that the John Cleese meaning of life reflections needed emotional strength and deep thought work he might not have been ready for earlier. How fans and critics are reacting to the memoir. The John Cleese memoir has split audiences and critics alike, a stark contrast to his comedy that brought people together through laughter, showing the comedy legend's complex legacy. Critics have given mixed reviews of the John Cleese book. The Wall Street Journal made a pointed observation that, for a man who's been the source of so much hilarity, he's not typically a barrel of laughs. Reviews often highlight Cleese's serious take on comedy. When occasionally seen on talk shows, his laugh is mirthless. Everything about him reminds us that comedy is a serious business. Cleese's relationship with his audience remains complicated. Fans who approach him usually say, "Mr. Cleese, I'm a huge fan," and they add, Monty Python and Fawlty Towers, almost as if they need to prove they know his work. His popularity still runs deep. The Monty Python reunion show in 2014. The first performance sold out in 44 seconds. The memoir's reception isn't his only public image challenge. His social media comments about transgender issues created significant controversy. LGBTQ+ activist Charlotte Clymer pointed out that discrimination becomes exacerbated when public figures speak from ignorance and bigotry on trans rights. Some of his social media followers now wonder if it's finally time to cancel him. The Python group's internal tensions have become more visible. Eric Idle's recent statements, according to many fans, are ruining their cherished Python memories. Idle admits, "I still love and am proud of what we did as Python," but describes the group as never very supportive of people's feelings and emotions. Not brothers, colleagues. Cleese speaks candidly about the group's dynamics on social media. "We always loathed and despised each other, but it's only recently that the truth has begun to emerge." His blunt assessment shows their relationship was more professional than personal. Money issues have strained these relationships further. A self-proclaimed seventh Python producer took Idle to court over Spamalot's Broadway profits, resulting in Idle paying over $1 million. These disputes help explain why Cleese, who started an alimony tour to handle his divorce-related financial problems, might see his Python experience through a more practical lens. A household name. Long before he became a household name, John was just a clever boy growing up in a quiet seaside town called Weston-super-Mare, on the southwest coast of England. Cleese excelled academically and attended Cambridge University, where he studied law. However, it was at Cambridge that his comedic talent began to emerge, particularly through his involvement in the renowned Footlights Club, a breeding ground for future British comedy legends. His performance in the Footlights revue, Cambridge Circus, gained critical attention and eventually took him to London's West End and Broadway in the early 1960s. Cleese's television career took off with his work on The Frost Report, 1966, where he collaborated with fellow future Monty Python members. His tall frame, crisp diction, and deadpan delivery made him a standout. In 1969, Cleese co-founded the groundbreaking comedy group Monty Python, launching Monty Python's Flying Circus on the BBC. The show became a cultural phenomenon known for its surreal, boundary-pushing humor, and established Cleese as a comedic powerhouse. The Python team went on to make several iconic films, including Monty Python and the Holy Grail 1975 and Life of Brian 1979. Cleese further cemented his legacy with the creation of Fawlty Towers 1975-1979, a sitcom widely regarded as one of the greatest of all time. Playing the irritable hotel manager, Basil Fawlty Cleese, combined physical comedy with razor-sharp writing, earning critical acclaim and a devoted fan base. By the 1980s, Cleese had become an international star, appearing in hit films such as A Fish Called Wanda 1988, which he co-wrote and starred in, earning both commercial success and an Academy Award nomination for Best Screenplay. John Cleese's rise was marked by a commitment to intelligence-driven humor, impeccable timing, and an ability to satirize everything from bureaucracy to religion. His influence on comedy, both in the UK and globally, remains unmatched. Simpler living. At 85, John Cleese lives a life that balances reflection, resilience, and continued creativity. Far from retirement, he remains deeply engaged with both his legacy and new ventures, all while navigating the physical and emotional realities of growing older. Cleese has spoken openly about the challenges that come with aging. He experiences vertigo, which affects his balance and daily mobility. He has type 2 diabetes, manages minor skin procedures, and invests in stem cell therapy in Switzerland, spending thousands each year to support his health and vitality. Despite these issues, he maintains a strong will to stay active and relevant. Even in his 80s, Cleese continues to perform. In 2023, he co-wrote and launched Fawlty Towers the Play, a theatrical adaptation of the classic sitcom. It opened in London to sold-out crowds and is now touring the UK through 2026. He also travels internationally with his one-man show, An Evening with John Cleese, where he shares personal stories and his unfiltered thoughts on life, comedy, and aging. Cleese reflects more candidly than ever about his past. his difficult childhood, failed marriages, and insecurities. He's admitted that therapy helped him understand his emotional rigidity, especially from his British stiff upper lip upbringing. In recent interviews, he talks about losing many friends and facing mortality, but still finds humor in life's ironies. Although once surrounded by luxury, he now lives a simpler life without a car or personal property. He has transferred ownership of his London flat to his wife and lives without extravagance. His current focus is less about wealth and more about meaning, legacy, and continuing to create thoughtfully. What do you think? Should Cleese have named names? Was honesty at 85 the right move or too late? Comment below, we read every word. If this truth hit home, like the video and subscribe to Maddie channel for more revealing memoir moments like this.